The outdoor industry, like every other industry on planet Earth, has its own set of limiting beliefs that stops it growing at a pace which would be desirable. It also stops it truly engaging with a wider audience of people who just would love to go into the outdoors. And today, that's what we're going to talk about. What is that largest limiting belief that the outdoor industry has? What can we do about it? And why do we think it even exists? So let's jump into it. As ever today, I'm joined by my Debbie McGee.
You say that. They are the sixth sense that Debbie McGee was going to come out.
Debbie McGee's going to come up, and that is Mr. Mark Hopkins. Hoppy, welcome.
Thank you. I was, as you were talking there, I was going back to when we did the outdoor news. And I always loved the warm-up because I never knew what crap was you going to come out of your mouth to describe me at the start of those things. Debbie McGee's come up 2-3 times now.
That's it. The Donald Trump to your Joe Biden, all that stuff. I remember. So, Mark, we've both been involved in consulting and coaching now for actually roughly half our lives, and individually. And we've worked across multiple industries, not just the outdoor industry. You in particular have in your earlier part of your career spent a lot of time working as a coach and consultant in the global financial services sector, insurances, banking, so on and so forth. And I suppose what I'd like to do is kick off with what have you noticed in terms of limiting beliefs in industries outside of the outdoor industry?
Probably 2 or 3 things happen, limiting beliefs. One is that it's in order to get a promotion or a pay rise, it's impossible for me to perform well and get a pay rise. I think that's one thing that they a lot of them think. Sometimes it flips on the other way. Sometimes they think in order to get a pay rise, they need to perform well when it's nothing to do with that. Predominantly, it's to do with who you know. Let's be honest, to get a pay rise. Second limiting belief is in order for me to be noticed, I need to be the first person through the door and the last person to leave the door. Therefore, I just need to sit there and occupy as much time as possible, and people will think I'm really good at what I do. And the third one is that my brand is big enough to get a sale.
That is so I think this isn't the largest limiting belief or in the outdoor industry, but I do think that it does fall across most industries. I'm better than everybody else, or I'm great, or my brand is better than everybody else's, therefore sales should come. My gear I manufacture is better than everybody else. I think that it wouldn't matter whether you're a lawyer, a plumber, a banker, or an outdoor business owner. I think that is a universal limiting belief.
Yeah, the arrogance behind it as well. It's so condescending, I find it. Like, I have something good, therefore you little minion, how can you not want to buy my product just because of my name? It's just like, so every time, it's the thing that hurts the most execs' heads when I ask them and challenge them on that. It's like, why should people, apart from your brand, why should people buy your product? You should see the look of fear in their eyes as they try and answer that question. They have no way to do it that actually talks about a customer.
So I want to step into now to what I think the largest fear or limiting belief is in the outdoor industry. And it's going to be different, Mark, to where maybe your experience was previously in your early part of your career in the financial services sector, because I don't believe they have this fear. But in the outdoor industry, I come across this limiting belief, and I think it's linked to a fear that you can't make great money in the outdoor industry, great profit. And if you do, capitalism is bad. Maybe that's all spawned from a fear of money. That's certainly what I'm picking up. And, I'd even go as far as saying that I personally battled with this, whatever it was, 17 years ago when I set up my first business. We're all broke together club, or we don't actually talk about money. And I wonder, I'm not too sure where it comes from, but I think it's definitely present. I mean, you've interviewed a whole load of outdoor business owners. What are you picking up around that limiting belief or beliefs around money?
I question it. I wonder if they're embarrassed by success. Like the fact that it goes that the outdoors is seen as a natural place where everybody is equal, and we're there just to appreciate the beauty of it and get a little bit better at what we're trying to improve on. And therefore, if I make money, I'm not part of that same club. So I don't want to make money because I don't actually realize or know how to deal with that feeling of I've got money, because it sort of goes against with the simplistic, natural environment that we're in. So I think they get really embarrassed, and actually they feel that it's going to change who they are, and it's probably going to change how they see the outdoors, which is it just doesn't make sense to me.
And I think other part of that is also how other members of the outdoor community see them as well. How would they get treated differently? Would I be still as loved or still as engaged with? It's funny that money and capitalism gets a really bad name in lots of circles, especially if you vote in a certain direction. I want to challenge it, though, because I think it's not about making money. I think that you can make tons of money. I don't think you have to sell your soul to do it. I think you can do it exceptionally honestly and ethically. And I equally would challenge if you want to do great good, how's great good being financed? You go and look, do you want to preserve the outdoors more? Well, a way of doing it is being a bit like John Muir and buying large chunks of the outdoors and turning them into parks to preserve the outdoors. But that doesn't happen with $150 at the end of a month sat in your check account or on your credit card. That happens with hundreds of millions of dollars. And so I think that there's a misinterpretation of money and how it's made, and that people in the outdoors don't want to believe that to make loads of money, you have to work 16 to 18 hours a day, sell your soul to the devil, sell everything like you're a used car sleazy salesman, and then never deliver on the promises that you make. I think that's and work 365 days a year. I think that's and then when you get it, you divorce your partner, buy a sports car, buy a mansion, and buy a private jet and screw up the earth by polluting it. I think that's like the entrepreneurial, almost classic model in North America, if you think about it. What the classic money-hungry entrepreneur, that's like their reputation, isn't it? And
there's many of those out there.
There is, and I think that the outdoor industry believes that if you're going to make lots of money, that's the route that you have to go down. I would suggest that if people were to consider the opportunity of conscious capitalism, where you're making money ethically and you're then using that profit for the greater good, beyond the new wife with fake boobs and the Ferrari and the mansion and the private jet. I think that if you get to that place, you could actually argue that the outdoor industry's attitude to money may well actually be screwing up the outdoors for the future.
And I think it leads to a hypocritical conversation that outdoor business owners have with their clients. Because let's be honest how we feel. We feel we want to make money. Why do we want to make money? Well, there's 2 or 3 reasons why we want to make money. Firstly, we want to make money because we want to leave a legacy for our kids. That's really, really important to both of us. The second thing is because we have goals and aspirations ourselves, buying boats, buying villages. There's things that we want to do because it's our dream and our ambition that ties into the outdoors. And thirdly, and these are in no particular order, thirdly, we want to give back to causes that are important to us that tie into our purpose, which is to positively impact 1 million people through the outdoors. Yeah. We're in conversations already with charities and non-profits that we want to give back. But I think it's such an important point. I would much rather give to these charities $100,000, $10,000 a month than $10 a month. So my incentive is to grow to that money.
Or even if it's, you can give back in a variety of ways. So one of the things that plays in my head a lot in terms of a challenge that the globe's facing is climate change. It's something that runs through my head relatively frequently. Climate change will kill the outdoor industry in the next 50 years if we carry on on its current trajectory. We will not have an outdoor industry to talk of in 50 years' time if we carry on as we currently are. So, one of the routes to slowing down or even reversing climate change is things like regenerative agriculture and permaculture and those sorts of things. Well, you can't change the whole farming in agricultural industry. You can go and start buying farms and saying, my farms are going to do no-till permaculture practices to capture carbon from the environment, put it back in the ground where it belongs, and start to change. So actually, you can do good by changing the nature of capitalism. But there's no way that we could go and buy 18 farms and start to make that change without what? Huge amounts of cash. And so you're right, Mark, there's that hypocritical thing of people are concerned about things. They even want to protest and have heated discussions about things. But when it comes to taking practical action, buying 18 farms and taking them from traditional agriculture to permaculture, as an example, buying huge amounts of Montana and doing what John Muir does and turning it into your own, not private, but a preserved area. When we get to practical action, people fall flat on their face because they turn practical action into protesting and saying the government must do it, as opposed to, I'm going to make some money and I'm going to buy those farms and do it myself. Or I'm going to create a not-for-profit that manages and owns a piece of countryside that will be there preserved for decades to come. And all of that comes through a fear or a misinterpretation of actually making cash.
I think it's such a cool way you described it. And again, practically what we're doing. So how are we not being hypocritical? Well, in a month's time, you're moving to your homestead where permaculture and all that agriculture that you've been talking about is going to become the main part of what Hogsview is going to look like. And We Get Outdoors is looking at buying a village or farm in Spain where we're taking those skills and we're actually applying them straight in. So we're using what money we're making We Get Outdoors to do 3 things: put money back in to have more impact on the outdoors, to actually practically do something that's going to make a change, even if it's a small change, it's a start, and it gets our community to start engaging in change. And selfishly, we're protecting the future of our kids. Now, win, win, win.
That's it. So I think that it's interesting that other than maybe Patagonia, who does engage in things like regenerative practices for fishing, agriculture, so on and so forth, I think that the outdoor industry suffers in general terms with being hypocrites. For amazingly practical people, we're actually not willing to get practical where it really matters, which is actually preserving the industry for decades and centuries to come by changing the face of how the world does things. And so we're happy to go on a naked bike ride through Portland to protest about something, which is great. But that level of awareness, what action are we really looking to have come out of it? The answer is we're really waiting for somebody else to go and do the real practical work. All we're doing is raising awareness. What we're saying is we're not actually willing to go and dedicate the next 10 to 20 years to growing real businesses, making real profit, and then reinvesting that profit back into the preservation of the world as a whole, the environment as a whole, and the industry as a whole for decades and centuries to come.
So what would be your, probably, let's say someone's listening to this now and going, okay, you've hit a nerve here. I don't want to be a hypocrite anymore. What would you say are the first 2 or 3 steps these people should be taking in order to start moving forward a little bit?
So number one, I think, and this is a little bit condescending in some respects, but I think it's true, is start treating your business like a business. Start treating it like something that isn't something that you've inherited or you've been given or you fell into by accident or whatever else. Start treating it as a real business. And what's a real business? A real business solves problems for people at a profit and does it en masse. I mean, that's a real business. And so start doing that and serving as many people as you humanly can in your business at a profit. That's the very first thing. I think the second thing, which is linked to that, is find as many mechanisms as possible to get other people to come work for you, to come and serve that large volume of people as possible at a profit. Because if we're not to be hypocritical, then we actually need the chance to go and find the farm to buy and turn it from chemical-based agriculture, this is just an example, into regenerative agriculture. And therefore, if you're delivering or manufacturing in your business personally 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, 52 weeks of the year, you'll never make that next step. And I think the third thing is to go and say, to go and have a hard conversation with yourself around why am I willing to be worried about this and even challenge this at a protest level, the stuff that's going on in the world, and actually not willing to go and make profits to go and actually change and then spend that money on actually changing the world. And then I suppose the last part is, changing the world on your own is really lonely. What's stopping me from collaborating with 4 other individuals to go and buy 80,000 hectares or 10,000 hectares of countryside and actually putting it in a not-for-profit and preserving it?
So if there are people out there who are fed up of being, not fed up, they have recognized that cycling naked through Portland, Oregon, while it might help your T-shirt tan, it probably is not going to make the biggest difference in their business. And they've now listened to your 4 steps, the next things that they can do. But they're now going, okay, Rob, I hear you, but I actually want to make a difference. Now I want to put this in practice, but I don't know where to start. Can you help me, Rob? What would you say they should do next?
So 2 things, like the first thing that an outdoor business needs to grow is more customers. That's not number one. And so if you want more customers in your outdoor business, Mark or I will happily interview you on our podcast. Our podcast gets in front of about 80,000 social media followers. So we'll happily interview you, about your business, about how it's excellent, and put it in front of 80,000 people. No catches, and we'll do that completely for free. So if that's what you want in your business promoted in front of more customers for free, there's a link below. Go and click on that and book a time, and we'll get you on the podcast. I think that's number one. Number two is if you're ready to actually go and be truly serious about coming on this journey, and you've got problems in your business that you don't know how to solve, like maybe it's mental or physical blocks that are stopping you from actually moving forward to grow it and turn it into something where you've got real money that you can use to make a real difference with, and you're ready to take that step and make those changes and overcome those blocks, you can book a call with me. I have about 3 hours a week where I give people an hour each to come and, for free, overcome some of those challenges. So you can book a call with me. The link to my schedule's below, and book some time with me and see if together we can help you overcome one or two of those blocks and take some steps forward to having a truly profitable business where you're not a slave in your business and you actually get the money that you need to go and make a real difference in the world.
Cool. I think that is a very, very powerful message to go and help build a legacy and not be a hypocrite.
That's it. Cool. Right. Thanks for your time, folks. We'll see you next week.